So, in this section of DOE, we are going to discuss about the types of graphs that has been used most of the time when you are presenting the results of DOE. I'm using the term when most of the times, like there are a number of graphs are there, but these graphs which are going to say are presented if you see, like if we take some publication, and you can see these graphs only repeated many times because these graphs are highly helpful to interpret the results. Maybe other graphs only just represent the values like in x and y axis, but these graphs you can able to interpret some of the results, like how the input variable influencing the output variable, how the independent variable influencing the dependent variable. So these most importantly user graphs we are going to discuss in this section. This what you're seeing on the screen are the most useful graphs in most of the times when you're doing the DOE experiments. One is the perturbation plots, another one is the contour plots, 3D surface plots, contour overlay plots. That means this is like something like contour plots only. I'll tell you what is the meaning of overlay, contour overlay plots. Then half normality plots, which you are seeing which you have seen already in the previous sections. Then Pareto charts. Then finally Q plots. So these are the main graphs one has been using when you are presenting the DOI results. So to move on to the first one, the perturbation plots, you could see this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. And as usual in the x-axis, we are going to take the input variables or the factors. The input variables are also called as the factors. The factors are nothing but the concentration of the ingredients of the process parameters or whatever it is. So you can see it is starts from -1 to +1, right? Starts from -1 to +1 because we are having always two common levels called as least and highest. The least are represented with the minus symbol and the highest are represented with the plus symbol. And the y-axis is the response. That is any one output variable. It may be, let us say, the written global size, or it can be a resolution, it can be a disintegration, friability. So the advantage of these graphs is you can see whatever the factors you have taken, like let us say here A, B, and C. There are three factors they have taken. The influence of all these factors at a time on a single response variable can be seen in a single time. Try to understand a single response variable, some way. It is not like all variables at a time. A single response variable or single outcome, what is the impact of the factors which you are taken to study can be seen at a time. So A, B, C, we are coding here as -1 to +1. Maybe A is like a 4 to 6 and B is like 5 to 10. So there are the minus and plus levels. So from least to highest, when you're increasing the concentration of these factors, what is their influence on the global size? We'll take the example here itself. Actually, this graph is for an emulsion, an nanoemulsion. So they take an oil, surfactant, and co-surfactant, and they're preparing an nanoemulsion. Now we want to know when we are increasing the concentration of oil, surfactant, co-surfactant from A to B, sorry, from minus to plus level. Now, what happens to the globule size? The size of the globule, the nanoemulsion globule is forming is either decreasing or increasing. For suppose if you take when you're increasing the oil concentration from minus to plus level, you can say obviously the globule size is increasing. But whereas when you are increasing the concentration of surfactant to co-surfactant, usually there is a negative, right? It's a negative declining in the graph, but it's not like so much down, because as we know, as the concentration of oil increases, like in polymer nanoparticles, as the concentration of material increases, the size is going to be increased. But whereas the surfactant or co-surfactants will reduce the interfacial tension between the oil and globule, so that the size may be going to be reduced, or sometimes it may be retained. It's not going to be increased. So that is the impact of these graphs. By seeing in a single set whatever the number of factors you are having, you can able to analyze easily what is its overall impact on a particular response variable. Here we know the overall impact of oil is more or much more than the other factors like co-surfactant and surfactant on the global side. Let us say it is maybe positive or negative, but the curvature is more, the influence is more. That is the ultimate idea behind it. Then move on to the second type called as contour plots. These are called as contour plots. So before going to the plots, one should understand the meaning of contour. Contour means outline or boundary. Like counter means an outline boundary. So outline or boundary plots. So what is the meaning of this outline or boundary plots? So counter plots display a three-dimensional relationship in two dimensions. So three-dimensional means you can see in the graph, this is one dimension, this is another dimension. So where is the third dimension is the response. Right, in the general class, what happens is x is the input variable and y is the output variable. But here it's not the case. Both are input variables. That is why here they're talking about some solid lipid nanoparticles. Lipid concentration is also independent variable. Surfactant concentration which are using to prepare nanoparticles also input variable. The output variable is the response which you're going to see in the graph. That I'll tell you the interpretation later. You try to understand what is the meaning of three-dimensional relationship in two dimensions means. Actually, this graph is a two-dimensional graph, but it is talking about three relationships. One is the factor one, factor two, followed by the one output variable like before graphs also said. So whatever the graph, to be frank, I'm saying right now is you can able to see one response, whatever the number of factors, only one response you can see at a time. Okay. So with the x and y axis are the predictors means the factors and the responses values were the counters means boundaries. So the responses you are going to see in the form of boundaries and the factors, the influence of factors you are going to see in the x and y axis. So the darker the region, the higher the response. So what is the meaning is, you take example here, lipid concentration was taken from 350, that is -2, highest concentration is 475. So let us say they're preparing a solid lipid nanoparticles. In that lipid is the material used for the preparation of nanoparticles. Right? Now in the y-axis, they have taken surfactant concentration. So surfactant is also one of the ingredient. First emulsion will form that will be solidified. Surfactant is important. What is the surfactant minus value? 25 is the least they have taken. 37 is the highest they have taken. Now they want to know where the size is more. So in this, see, they said the darker the region, the more the value is. For suppose here, where is the darker region? Here. The darker the region, the more the value. Here the mole is nothing but the response which they want to determine is the size of the nanoparticle formed. So approximately at 425 mg of SLN and 35 mg of surfactant, you are getting a bigger size particles as bigger as it is possible through the experiment. But as the color fades or the color lightens, like here you can see dark green followed by little lighter, followed by little lighter, followed by light. But all these are like boundaries, counters. And if you see it is like completely lighter, that means we are also discussing the previous slide, as the concentration of something increases, definitely the size is going to be increased. But here at the initial concentration of lipid and the surfactant, the size is very less. Similarly, let us say you're putting a dissolution here. You're putting a factor X, let us say disintegrant concentration, let us say binder concentration. So this darker region indicates the more dissolution area. The lighter region indicates the less dissolution area. Like that, you can able to interpret, the regions based on the regions. What is the output, response, like it's maybe more or less. So the darker the regions identified, the response values are more. So that you have to remember once. These are the example of the counterplots. Counter means the boundary. Coming to the next plot are the most popular plots called as 3D plots. So when we'll say 3D, usually we are using two graphs in two axes. One is the X, Y, other two-dimensional graphs. When you use the third axis called Z, these are called as three-dimensional. That's why you can see here, X is there, and Y is there, and also Z is there. Okay, three sides are using three, directions you are using a graph that is called as three-dimensional graphs. So what is the use of this graphs? Like like counter plots, there also what you can do is you can take two factors. You can say -5 to +5. Similarly, another factor y, -5 to +5. Now, when you're increasing the factor from minus to plus, similarly, when you're increasing the factor from minus to plus, what happens to the response? Z is here is a response or the independent variable. Is a response or the output variable. So what happens to the dissolution? Let us say, what happens to the particle size? When you're increasing X, you can see the particle size is first reduced, followed by again it is increasing. So at the center value, the particle size is very less. Similarly, when you take a y-axis and when you're increasing, at the mid-level, the particle size is more. But when you're further increasing, the particle size is reducing. It's like it's a roof. When the roof is flat, you can see the flat roof here. When the roof is flat, it doesn't mean that whatever your concentration you're increasing, it is not influencing the response. But when the root is not flat, it's a curvature, either is increasing or decreasing, like the distributional plots when you saw. The more the curvature of the roof, the more the influence of the taken input factors such as x and y. So that is the advantage of 3D plots. 3D plots is like a roof. Since we're using 3 dimensions, we're calling as 3D plots. It will say, taking consideration of any two factors in an experiment, one can able to find out the response, how well it is going to be influenced, and at what point it is more and what point it is less. And also can able to ask a question, sir, in any experiment you are using more than two factors, then what to be done with the factors? So that's what I said. It's not only for x and y. There are, let us say, I have taken 6 factors. But please remember, any two factors at a time you can see through the graphs. But more than two factors you cannot see. Let us say here instead of x and y, you can able to instruct to the software, I want to know like a and b factors, what is influence on my response. Definitely you can see once again changing in this graph structure or whatever depending on the influence of your experience with the factors with the responses. So but at any given point of time, two factors you can take it and see the response at a time. And the last one is the overlay counter plots. So it is also like counter means boundary, right? You can see the boundary here, a clear yellow color region boundary. And what is the meaning of counter overlay plots is basically it gives a design space. So once you want to know the design space, please refer to the QBD design space. Design space is a space is called as ideal region. This is called ideal region to play. Let us say, I'll take an example of immediate release tablet. They says in the pharmacopoeia, it should release not less than 85% of the drug in 15 minutes. Please try to understand. Let us say you're taking a paracetamol immediate release tablet. Once you are taking a definition, it is an immediate release tablets. They say it should release not less than, that means let us say 5 minutes of time, the dissolution should be 85% and above. Then only can able to immediately release, immediately dissolve, and immediately going to be show the action of headache, the reducing the headache. So if a drug has to be released and it should have dissolution of 85% in 15 minutes, at least not less than 85% means 85 and above, 86, 87, even 100 also no problem, but at least the requirement is 85%. And we can say that is an immediate release tablet. So what happens is when you finish the experiment, you will get a design space like this. That means wherever you're working in this design space, let us say here it's like 86. And when you put the cursor here, maybe like 87. Or sometimes if we put the cursor here, it may be 100%. So this complete yellow color region, we are telling to the software that we need not less than 85%. Then it will say this is the ideal region. The ideal region is nothing but what is the X to be taken, what is the Y to be taken, that is otherwise what is the factors, concentrations to be taken so that you will get 85. Let us say, here they give an example of global size, 15.450, right? So if I want 15.450 as my global size, I have to take X1 at 10.09 and X2. They didn't write what is the factors that is like, maybe I think it's a surfactant and lipid concentration, 34.84, so that I can make assure that I will get definitely 15.4. That's what. Whenever you put a cursor on this yellow color region, it will tell what to be the X and what to be the Y so that you will get this value. And we are doing an experiment once with this theoretical value, when we are doing practically, and we are going to calculate the percentage error, that is theoretical minus practical divided by theoretical into 100. So let us say here it is predicting 15, and you will not necessarily get exactly 15, sometimes it will be 14 or 16, but the percent deviation is not more than 5%, then your experiment is validated. Or else somewhere we are doing a wrong, some kind of mistake was happened in the experiments. There is some misinterpretation of results, one has to be properly verified. So that is the advantage of counter overlap plots. Counter overlap plots are basically nothing but it gives a design space or nothing but ideal space. In that space, one can able to work, or one can able to says that it is an ideal region to work. And crossing beyond this border, that means if you come above this region or below this region, what happens is that resolution will come less, like 84, 83, 82, and sometimes it's 50% also. So that is the ideal space and design space. Coming to the other plots, why I'm not haven't kept a brief discussion about this is you already seen the previous sections of this. Now, the presentation, half normality plots comes from basically the normality calculation followed by half normality. These graphs will isolate the influential factors and non-influential factors. Let us say you have taken a factors from A to E. There are some 6 factors or 5 factors, but all factors are not necessary to influence. That's why you're using the term for significant factors and non-significant factors. By using the half normality plots, one can able to differentiate. How they can differentiate? The factors which is not falling on the line are called as significant factors, which to call as significant factors. And the factors which is falling on this line are called as non-significant factors. You can see down there are a number of factors which is falling on this line. These are called as non-significant factors. So using this graphical statistical tool, one can able to separate the significant factors and non-significant factors. But theoretically, just remember this. But when you're going to the further slides where we are seeing the popcorn experiment, that time you will understand clearly what is the use of this half normality plot and how it is segregating the significant and non-significant factors. Okay, so from this half normality plot, you will be able to develop the Pareto chart. So Pareto chart is nothing but it starts from D. So which is completely away from the graph is the highly significant factors. So that is here, then followed by here, then followed by here, and the remaining factors which you are seeing, which is very having low impact. This is the response actually, which is having very low impact, like these factors which is falling on this line, which doesn't have any kind of influence. Okay, so if you could recall the Pareto chart, the Pareto principle which you see in the previous sections of this presentation, it says among the number of factors which you take, only of which 20% are responsible to influence the response. Let us say A to E taken, maybe 20% of this is maybe let us say A. B, C, E, D is not going to influence much on the response. They are having less influence on the response. That is the Pareto principle. That is 20:80. That means 20% of the factors are responsible for the 80% of the results. You could see here, these are the factors, right? But why only this factor having more, influence on the response almost near to 80%, whereas the rest is not influencing? That's the truth. It doesn't mean that whatever the factor you're taking, everything will influence equal and every response. Let us say a disintegrant concentration, you take cross columnar sodium, it will influence only the dissolution, but it will not influence the flow property. It doesn't influence the other properties of the tablets of friability and all. Like let us take magnesium stearate, it will influence only the lubricant property of the tablet, but it may not influence the dissolution. Like that, each excipient having its own role. It doesn't mean that everything influences everything. But when you change, let us say this response to another response, this again whatever is saying, it may change. Once again, it may be rearranging as per the response. So that is the advantage of Pareto charts and half normality plots. They are mainly meant for to segregate the significant and non-significant factors. Coming to the cubic plots, what you have seen before in the presentations, like different designs based upon basically all these designs kind of like plotted based upon the cube. So if you put these values at the corners, these are basically cube plots. Once again, if you want to understand more about these cube plots, once you are seeing the popcorn experiment, you will be able to clearly understand what is the meaning of cubic plots. Then the perturbation plots which are seen and the counter plots. So these are the main plots one can able to see mainly in the design of experiments. So if you know these graphs, you can able to interpret them. And when you're doing a publication or writing a thesis, you can able to write this graph. You can able to paste this graphs on the software, and you can able to write some of the write-up related to this graphs under this each heading.